something interesting happened today, so I'm going to do this in two parts. One, Pierre Dorion was just extended to an extra 3 years on his deal, which will now run through 2022, meaning he had another year left on his contract. And Eugene Melnyk, in a smart move, decided he didn't want a lame duck GM. Did the Aquilinis hear that in Vancouver? No? Alright, whatever. It's fine. It's not a big deal. Pierre Dorion has had one full season under his belt, and Ottawa went 44-28-10. But I put more stats up here than the win-loss and the points. They had 212 goals for and 214 goals against. And when you look at the advanced stat nerds coming into this season, they were saying, hey, Ottawa kind of overachieved and don't get too enamored with. So today the Ottawa Senators sent out a letter to their fans, kind of through Eugene Melnyk, saying, hey, there's going to be some pain. We're going to move players out. Really? I read a really funny one from Buffalo, though. It's on Twitter. It's not actually from Buffalo, but it did get me at first. At first I was like, wait, did Buffalo? Oh, okay. Because it mentions that, despite the fact that our team isn't any good, we're going to continue to raise ticket prices. Concessions are going to continue to be insanely expensive. And at that point, I'm like, yeah, all right, this is awesome. This is some great trolling of the Buffalo Sabres. And to hashtag the Buffalo Sabres in it, if you're tagging them and you're using a hashtag, that's brilliant. Anyways, and I wish I'd thought of it. Part of me is like, oh, man, I wish I could have done that. So I had to retweet it out. Just give credit where credit's due. Ottawa overachieved, and there was a lot of high expectations coming into the season because you keep hearing they were one goal away from the Stanley Cup final. That's right, and in 1982, the Vancouver Canucks went to the Stanley Cup final. One playoff run doesn't tell you how good your team is, and it may feel like it at the time. But as I've said this year, a best-of-7 series is different than a regular season matchup. And a team that does well in the regular season doesn't necessarily do well in the postseason, and vice versa. Sometimes teams struggle to get into the postseason, and once they're there, they're the kings. They're fantastic. It's weird how that works. Some teams are built for that playoff, that grind, and some are built for the regular season and not built for the other. So, Ottawa came through in the playoffs. But if you look at that run to the conference championship, first they beat Boston, and Boston had a lot of hurt blue liners. Now, I'm not saying Ottawa wouldn't have beat Boston anyways, but Boston had a really walking wounded style blue line by the end of that series. And as much as Boston wanted to fight back, they just didn't have the manpower to do it. Then they played the Rangers in the second round. The Rangers couldn't score. The Rangers are not a team that can score this year either, and they're sending out a letter letting their fans know it's time to tear it down. Then they meet Pittsburgh. They gave Pittsburgh the fight of their lives, but they lost. I think what's happened is Eugene Melnyk as the owner, because he keeps mentioning it. Every time you see an interview with Eugene Melnyk, what does he say? They came one goal from me making the Stanley Cup final. Yeah, and the Vancouver Canucks were one goal away from being Stanley Cup champions in 1994. Didn't do jack shit for us in 1995, 96, 97. Oh, look, we dropped right off the map by then. To try to make it sound like the team's better than it is by pointing out past glory is kind of a Canuck thing to do. It's a Canuck fan thing to do, too. And it's something I've seen a lot of fans do online. You shouldn't expect that from your owner. Your owner shouldn't be saying, hey, remember last May? Wasn't that awesome? While you're getting slaughtered and there's people throwing jerseys on the ice. What's your problem? We were a goal away from the Stanley Cup final in last May. Yeah. That's sort of like, you're driving along the highway and your car runs out of gas and you go, I don't understand what happened. We had a full tank of gas in Vancouver. Now here we are in the Fraser Valley, and we've been driving for a few hours, and I ran out of gas. And everybody gets mad at you, and you go, hey, we had a full tank in the city. I didn't see anybody complaining to me we had a full tank. It's stupid. It's ridiculous. Of course fans are going to be angry when the team's crap. So let's discuss Pierre Dorion. And there's not a lot to discuss with Pierre Dorion because he's only been in the job for about a year and a half. I'm going to start with his draft record because there's something interesting in here. So 2016 was his first draft. Because it says here he was named new general manager on April 10th of 2016. Dorion became the 8th general manager in team history. God, that's sad. There's no way Ottawa's been in the league long enough to have 8 general managers. Figure it out. In his first season as general manager, the Senators returned to the playoffs and went all the way to the Eastern Conference Finals. An Ottawa native, Dorion spent 2+ seasons as assistant general manager with a focus on NHL contracts, player personnel, and leading the club's professional and amateur scouting activities. Before taking on the assistant general manager role in January 2014, Dorion spent 4+ seasons as director of player personnel and served 2 seasons as the Senators' chief amateur scout. As director of player personnel, Dorion was responsible for managing the Senators' scouting staff, both professional and amateur, and oversaw all facets of evaluation for players both inside and outside the organization. He originally joined the Senators organization in July of 2007 after spending the previous 2 seasons as an amateur scout for the New York Rangers. For the prior 11 seasons and for the prior 11 seasons with the Montreal Canadiens, where he served as an amateur scouting coordinator and as chief scout. So he comes in as a scout for the most part. A lot of his work experience is in scouting, which is odd because he hasn't been anxious to get a draft pick or keep one. I'm going to get into that. Seriously. Everybody talks about betting, but give me a break. So 2016, his first draft pick was Logan Brown. We'll get into the Logan Brown draft. And Jonathan Dahlen. Jonathan Dahlen, they decided to sacrifice for Alex Burrows. I'm just waiting till the Sens fans stop screaming at their computer monitors or their phones for me mentioning it. You're welcome. Then Todd Burgess, Maxime Lajoie, and Marcus Nurmi. This past draft, Shane Bowers was drafted in the first round. Of course, he's gone now. He's not in the organization. Alex Foreman. Foreman had a good camp. Looks like he'll probably be the NHLer. I'm sure he'll get traded away for nothing. Drake Batherson and Jordan Hollett. So those are his draft picks. He's had 2 entry drafts, and he's already got rid of 2 of his top 2 draft picks. A first rounder from last year, which Ottawa fans assured me he's not going to make it anyways. We'll get into that. And, and Jonathan Dahlen, who wasn't going to be anything either. I remember Ottawa fans last year at the deadline. I'm not saying all of them, but there were a lot of them like, oh, that's no big deal. Good, we got Burrows, we got some grit for the playoffs. His free agent signings this past offseason were Nate Thompson and Johnny Oduya. Again, I'm just letting Ottawa Senators fans finish yelling at their screens and phones. Now, April 10th, 2016, he takes over. He acquires on June 24th, 2016, the first-round draft pick of New Jersey, where he drafts Logan Brown for his first-round draft pick, which becomes Michael McLeod, and a third-round draft pick. McLeod, Logan Brown. June 27th, he acquires Patrick Seeloff for Alex Chiasson. Now, Chiasson was not very good in Calgary. So I'll go ahead and give him a saw off there. July 18th. You guys, for long-time subscribers, you guys remember the video I did on this? And Senators fans weren't happy with me. They told me I was wrong. Here I come. The Ottawa Senators acquired Derek Brassard from the Rangers and a 2018 seventh-round draft pick for Mika Zibanejad and a second-rounder from that same draft. This draft, the deep draft with the talent in it. They said, we'll take Brassard, we'll give you Zibanejad, the younger player, we'll take a 7th-rounder, and you guys go ahead and have a 2nd-rounder, too. And all I could picture on the other end of the phone was Jeff Gorton going, all right, so we're acquiring a 7th-rounder, and you guys acquire the 2nd... Wait, what? Wait, can I mute the phone for a sec? No. Huh? No. That was nothing. No, I'll take it. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, you guys throw in the 2nd round. How about a 3rd? No, you know what? No. I've done enough. Mika Zibanejad has not been a huge star in New York, but I would still take him ahead of Brassard. My argument at the time this trade was made was that Brassard's older, Zibanejad's a better forward, and yeah, Zibanejad's a little more expensive, but he's a better center. And they gave up a 2nd-rounder too. I might chalk that up as a loss for Pierre Dorion. Then they acquired Mike Condon for a 5th-round pick. February 27th of last year, they acquire Alex Burrows for Jonathan Dahlen. That's a loss. Jonathan Dahlen right now looks like he's going to be an NHL player. And acquiring an NHL player, a young NHL player, for what Burrows is right now, is a win for Vancouver and a huge loss for Ottawa. And it shows attention deficit disorder, which is now hurting the team. Here's the big one. Are you ready for this? Because November 5th, everything changed. Ottawa was in a relatively good position at that point. Now, this doesn't show everything, because this doesn't point out that Kyle Turris got moved to Nashville. Yeah. Matt Duchene, for Shane Bowers, who at Boston University this year has 28 games played, 13 goals, 9 assists, 22 points. Those are good totals in your first year of Boston University. Those are good years, and those are good numbers in any NCAA school. So when Sens fans were like, "Well, he's not going to make it anyways," I was like, "Really? You just drafted him, and it's already like, he's done. You just drafted him." It's like opening a can of pop and looking at it and going, "Yeah, it's no good. It's crap. Who wants my beer? This one's crap. You haven't drank any of it. You know what? I'll have it." And Sakic decided to have Ottawa's beer and have a lot of it. And yet it was Ottawa that was making the drunk move that I'm sure Sakic listened to this trade. And even though Sakic waited forever to trade Matt Duchene, I'm sure when he looked at this haul and he's getting Girard from Nashville on top of it, while Turris is going to Nashville, and Nashville's giggling the whole way because they didn't even do Samuel Girard anyways. He's getting Bowers, Andrew Hammond, which was a cap dump. And Ottawa fans were quick to say, "Hey, at least we got rid of a Hammond's contract." He was in the minors. It didn't have anything to do with fans. This had to do with Eugene Melnyk not wanting to pay the money anymore. And 2018 first round pick, 2018 third round pick. Now I've got /19 because thankfully the only move Pierre Dorion made that made sense was he made this one lottery proof. Meaning, if they finish out of the playoffs and they get into the lottery, the draft lottery, Ottawa keeps the pick. But as I said at the time of the trade, if Ottawa's in the draft lottery, you've had a shitty season. You've had a bad year. It's been a bad year, if that's what happens. This body of work got him a 3-year extension on his contract. And, you know, you can look at other minor moves, but the question that I have is the same one I asked Montreal fans. So Montreal fans are like, "We've got to trade this guy and this guy. Why don't we trade this guy?" Do you want the GM that you have running your team making that move? So let's say next year Erik Karlsson comes into camp and says, "I don't want to play until I got a new contract for next year. I've had foot problems. I've, had some injury concerns. And I don't want to go out there and give it 110% until I get a new contract. You guys got to sit down and negotiate with me." Now, these kind of holdouts don't happen anymore. So you're lucky. Erik Karlsson's not going to do that. But let's say Erik Karlsson, partway through the season, starts getting PO'd. Let's say that there's nothing happening. Let's say he sits down at the table and says to Pierre Dorion, "Here's my number. Here's what I want." Dorion takes that number to Eugene Melnyk, and Melnyk goes, "He's not worth that." Now you got to trade him. Do you trust your GM who came in as a scout and can't wait to give up futures? I don't get it. Like, everybody gets mad at Jim Benning, and I understand it because the team he inherited was just hot garbage. But at least Benning's acquiring futures. At least Benning over the last couple of years has been strengthening the prospect pool. Ottawa's been cleaning it out. They got a lifeguard telling everybody to get out of the pool. I'm surprised Logan Brown hasn't been traded yet, because he looks like a decent prospect. So I'm really surprised that Pierre Dorion hasn't been like, "Does anybody want Logan Brown? Anybody? How about that Belmar guy in Vegas? We got to shore up our fourth line, don't we?" It's insane. They didn't find a way to protect Mathot. They lost Mathot in the offseason for nothing. For nothing. And as Dallas proved, Mark Mathot can get you a return. He's a pretty good defenseman. And as a Dallas fan, I say thank you to Pierre Dorion for making that move. Shouldn't have exposed Mathot. Shouldn't have happened. And in Eugene Melnyk's eyes, this GM brought them within a win within a goal of the Stanley Cup Finals. Now, if we look over history, Brian Burke came into Anaheim with a pretty damn decent team. Added a part, and it was a Chris Pronger part, and Chris Pronger played a major role in a Stanley Cup. But the Stanley Cup foundation was built by another GM. You can look at what's gone on in Pittsburgh, and Jim Rutherford's been fantastic, but that foundation was built by another GM. Dorion's team that he had at the start of this, built by Brian Murray. And Brian Murray never got the credit that he deserved as a GM. Didn't get it in Anaheim, and he never got it in Ottawa either. Just makes a very competitive, solid team that somebody else takes over, and then, oh, look, they went somewhere in the playoffs. All hail the new GM. I personally, I look at what's gone on, and I go back to the Brassard deal. This was so short-sighted. This was so bad at the time. And I said that at the time. I said the Rangers are walking away laughing. So I'm really glad there's a video on this channel of my analysis of that trade, because I don't take anything back that I said. And at no point over the last almost 2 years have I ever said, you know what? I might have been wrong. Brassard might have been worth losing Zibanejad and a second-round draft pick. And I like Derek Brassard, but I really like Mika Zibanejad. I think he's a good forward, and I think he's got a long future in the NHL. Brassard might be going as a rental right now. In fact, let's take a quick look. Okay, so I loaded them up on Cap Friendly, just so we can take a little look. So yeah, they either don't have a first rounder this year or next year, whichever one they choose, and they already don't have a third rounder in 2019. Contracts that are up. Mark Stone, of course, is an RFA. Brassard's actually got 2 years left at $5 million per. Hoffman's got $5.1 million for the next 3 years. He's worth it. Keep him. Duchene, of course, is up at the end of next season. Burrows has $2.5 million this year and next year. That's sexy. I understand why they gave it to him, and full marks for Burrows getting a 2-year contract because he wanted to stay somewhere, but yeah. Ryan Dzingel, $1.8 million, up at the end of next year. Nate Thompson's good through next year with 1.6. Tom Pyatt's good through next year at 1.1. Colin White's are an RFA at the end of next season when his entry-level contract's up. Pajärvi's a UFA this summer. And DiDomenico's a UFA this summer. On the blue line, now, there's rumors, and I saw on Sportsnet they showed Steve Dangle's video where he's talking about Phaneuf might be getting traded. Look, Phaneuf's got 3 more years at $7 million per. I don't know where he's going, but it has to be a team that's like, hey, we'll take on a 32-year-old defenseman who's iffy in both defense and offense because we like paying $7 million a year for 3 more years. I just don't see it. And of course, Carlson's up at the end of next year. Cody Ceci is an RFA with arbitration rights this summer. He's at $2.8 million. Borvitsky is $1.2 million for next year and the year after. They've got Borvitsky lined up for 3 more years, or 2 more years after this one. Johnny Oduya's up. He's a UFA. I can't see him staying there. Shabbat's got 2 more years after this year on his entry level. Weidman's UFA this summer. Clayson is RFA with arbitration rights. And oh my God, Anderson's got 2 more years at $4.75 million, and Condon's got 2 more years after this year at $2.4 million. Really? It's a lot of money. So it's a lot of money for a team that just isn't. Yeah. Next year. So next year, okay, let's just say all those contracts just expire. The projected cap hit next year for the Senators is already $65.7 million. At a cap of $75 million, which it is this year, that's a $9 million cap spending they have. Now, it's likely it's going to go to $80 million, which would give them $14 million, which sounds great, except that many teams have much more cap space than that this summer. And I'm going to do a video about that probably after the trade deadline, so we have a really good idea of who's freed up cap space for next year and who's really got cap problems next year. There's a problem in Ottawa because you have to re-sign Stone. So let's just take a look at the more expensive ones. You have to re-sign Stone. They have to re-sign Ceci, who may want an upgrade on that $2.8 million. They're going to have to replace Johnny Oduya. So they've got Phaneuf, unless they trade him, Carlson, Ceci, Borvicki, Shabbat, and either Weidman or Clayson. So there's your top six. And then up front, you've got Mark Stone, who's UFA, and he's at $3.5 million. So, let's say Stone gets a $3 million increase. Well, now you're down to $11 million that you have to spend on UFAs. And then you have to look at the UFA market and say which UFAs are going to fix Ottawa. It can be really easy to turn things around if you have a GM making all the right moves. And it seems like freeing up cap space, getting your team younger and faster, and don't tie up a ton of money in your goaltending. Those seem like three relatively good places to start. And I don't know, like if you look at Ottawa right now, they're spending $6.6 million between the two goaltenders, which doesn't sound like a lot. But then you look and you go, are either Craig Anderson or Mike Condon a starter right now in the NHL? I would say no. That's a problem. And in Anderson's case, he is currently 36 years old and Condon's 27. So Condon's still got years left, but what's Condon's ceiling? Probably exactly what he is now. So here's the question I have for Ottawa fans. Now that I have documented a large portion of what has happened, what has transpired since Pierre Dorion took over, are you happy with a 3-year extension for this guy, which will run him through, according to the article, it said 2022. And Eugene Melnyk continuing to mention, hey, we were a goal away from the Stanley Cup, remember? It's aggravating. It's just like how it was aggravating that for years after 2011, every time the Canucks would plaster something up there, they'd talk about the 2011 Stanley Cup final. And, oh, hey, remember the run? Oh, we're going to do it again. No, you're not. Stop it. Change it. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. And, hey, thank you so much for watching. I'll talk to you again soon.